and are asking for our Class 1 exhibitors to make their way to the holding pens. We welcome back Judge A.J. Genter today from Archibald, Ohio. He's a graduate of Ohio State. He and his wife Keisha have 4 children. He's an ag lender for Premier Bank and owns and operates Genter Show Stock. He comes to us with 20 years of judging experience, including the American Royal, Houston, and San Antonio. Thanks for being with us this weekend and sorting our stock. Our first class is a single entry prospect gilt from Mason Vanderhyde of Pennsylvania.
Well, good morning. Certainly a pleasure to be back day 2. The young man brings us a single entry prospect, and honestly, that gilt could stand a little bit of competition in this scenario because she's heavy-legged, she's shapely up top, and yet she's still got balance and look and fundamentally built right at the ground. She's feminine about her head and uses her hind leg extremely well. Let's give this young guy a big round of applause on your single entry class winner.
First place prospect gilt to Mason Vanderhyde. Next in the ring will be our lightweight division Class 1 commercial gilts. In this class, we have 5 exhibitors: Aubrey Dellinger from Shenandoah, Sophia Cassiano from Loudon, Ruth Hale of Hanover, Melania Ritchie from Rockingham, and John Hale from Hanover. We'd like to thank our show sponsors today, the Virginia Port Council, Land of Promise Farms, Creative Virtue Awards, and CNH Pipeline Solutions. We certainly could not do this without your support.
An interesting first class, the best built, the best balanced one that combines rib and body, looseness of skeleton, and still looks like a lady. Breeding type scenarios, a gilt we start with. She does have a blunt one on both sides as far as her underlying quality there. We could change her just a shot, but certainly the extension, the look, the shape to her body, again, all things that allow that one to win this particular drive. The two calicos or cheetah print ones, I guess, as we get into 2 and 3, the one that's in second, to me, reads just a nickel stouter, one that just has a little better shape to her cage, and then honestly, she's cleaner in her front feet as far as the extra claw of the one that comes in 3. I like the bone and feature of the young lady's gilt that comes in 3. Again, really level. She's got a stout skull. She's extra heavy-legged. We could just take her front left one's got the extra claw, and again, that generates pretty true, and for those reasons, she gets into 3. We get into 4 as we turn the black gilt out of the young ladies in the striped shirt. That's a big, elevated, pretty one. And for me, comparatively speaking, she's the flattest in her body. She's the driest in her ribs. She's the frailest in terms of her ankle and feature. And then she really wants to tuck her hip and tuck her hind leg up under her. She needs to be rounder in her body and have a more productive look. Market type scenario. You love her shape and flare up top. She sets a square hind leg to the surface. She simply needs more rib and body and capacity. Here's a level spine one that's loose in terms of her skeleton, simply too flat from end to end, much like the 1 and 4. Let's give those kids a nice hand as they head back.
Good start to our Gilt show today. First place to Melena Ritchie of Rockingham. Second, an entry from John Hale. Third, Ruth Hale. Fourth, Sophia Cassiano. And fifth, Aubrey Dellinger. Our second place in the lightweight division, we also have 5 entries. Grant Bowman of Shenandoah, Sarah Cron of Rockingham, Blake Dean of Page, Spencer Trumbo from Rockingham, and Isaac Cyphers of Washington. Youth Livestock Weekend at the State Fair wouldn't be possible with our partners. State Fair of Virginia, Virginia Farm Bureau, Virginia Cooperative Extension, Virginia Youth Animal Science Program, Virginia Department of Agriculture and Consumer Services, Farm Credit of the Virginias, First Bank and Trust, Bank of Botetourt, Ag Lending Division, Show Barn Flicks, and Mandy Rooker Photography.
Well, an interesting second class. 143, the boy to my left, has got an easy handle in this particular class. That Gilt combines a shape to her body, elevation, feminine front, and then a good square hind leg, and she can plan and give and go as we set her into motion. I like her extra size and stature. She's the athletic one of the drive, and that she's soft in her body texture. She's just so much heavier duty in terms of her bone, foot, and feature. She's longer and looser in terms of her step off of her hind end than the one that we've got in second. Now, the one in second is maxed out. Great skin and hair, awesome presentation. Love the extra shape up top, and then at the same time, female type scenario, she needs to be lengthened in her hip. She needs to be heavier structured. She needs to be stronger in terms of her front feet. But her squareness of hind leg, her ability and just agility to plant and push and drive forward allows her to beat the stoutie that's in 3. This one's moderate size, thick and chunky, all things that you can say. For me, she's just got a little more cover than what we call ideal. And then when I watch her go directly away, simply put, she's on the edge. She really wants to hook and bow and roll. If we could square her hind leg, loosen her upper hip, peel her down and give her a more streamlined look, then it's a different scenario. Parts of the Gilt that come next. Initially, I think, hey, that one's got a neat skull, and certainly she's elevated. You watch her from this side. She's shorter in her upper hip. She really wants to swivel and just doesn't take as good a step as what I'd like here today. I love her front end assembly. She's got good depth of body, but at the same time reads flatter in her forerib and just doesn't have that extra gear that it takes, but certainly a high-quality Gilt to fall down the line. This one from the side, I like a great bit. She's really sound and agile, but simply stand over. She's the flattest in this particular drive. She's the narrowest from end to end, coupled with the fact she's the frailest as well. Let's go ahead and give those kids a nice round of applause as they head back.
First place in our Class 2 commercial breeding Gilts. In the lightweight division, Isaac Cyphers. 2 to Spencer Trumbo. 3, Blake Dean. 4th, Sarah Cron. And 5th, Grant Bowman. We're going to select our champion and reserve champion lightweight commercial breeding Gilt now. We'll be bringing into the ring Melina Ritchie and Isaac Cyphers. As well as our second place in the classes, John Hale and Spencer Trumbo.
Well, a good first division of Gilts as we work them back out. We've got our 2 class winners that drive out first, and again, very, very high quality. Those seconds that stood behind them, lots of quality as well. But I thought it was close for your champion and reserve in this particular division between our 2 class winners. And yet, with that said, there's one that's stouter. There's one that's just so much just burlier from end to end. Really neat looking when we get from this side. I think a good set in Division 1. The champions right here, reserves over here. Congratulations.
Congratulations to our champion lightweight commercial breeding Gilt, Isaac Cyphers. Reserve champion went to Melina Ritchie. We're going to move right into our heavyweight commercial Gilt division. We have 6 entries. The entries in that class are Coleman Seal of Augusta, Selena Perez of Virginia Beach, Grayson Long from Rockingham, Charles Farmer from Pennsylvania, Riley Nugent from Shenandoah, and Nicholas Henderson from Madison.
Real nice class of heavies here, and a nice pair on the top end. And amongst the top pair. Just the bolder, wider, fresher, better ribbed one needs to start. The young lady's got an extra heavy-legged one that's really pliable in her center body. She's sturdier in her front foot. She's square as she comes. She's got a really loose rear leg assembly as we set her into motion. That's a big bodied one that's got lots of horsepower and yet at the same time maintains squareness. I like that Gilt to lead. The big extended one here comes in second, and again, to me, just reads flat in her body from end to end. Then she flattens in her front feet. Doesn't read to me to be just as stout. I love her extra length of hip. I love her squareness of hind leg. She gets a little different as she comes to me. It's a little flatter in her face and just not just as burly when I stand in close in terms of shape of body, in terms of depth of body. But man, that's a big, long, square, wide upper hip. Young guys to be commended. I like pieces of the Gilt that come in three, and again, the Gilt in third has got a shorter hip. She closes in her front knee and really wants to get a little flat up front. Past that from the side. I love her streamlined look. She's got a neat skull, and yet she's still got some shape up top. But she needs to be pried open at the base of her skeleton to match all the shape and spread that she has up top to make her more of a genuine built kind of a female to go ahead and generate with down the road. The one that comes out next, again, lacks the extras in terms of bone and feature, runs downhill just a shade, not as heavy structured, not as extended, but certainly pliable in her mid-body and gets to swiveling out of her upper hip. She was stouter, though, yet than the Gilt that comes below her. Again, here's a thick-bodied one that's really got some spring to her cage and yet gets a little flat in her front feet, rocks forward in her blade, and then swivels off of her hind end. The really heavy structured one with lots of muscle comes out next. Again, when you watch her go away skeletally and fundamentally, she needs to be built better. Her hind leg needs to be square. She needs to be rocked back in her blade and peeled down in her condition. Let's give those kids a big round of applause as they head back.
Placings for Class 1 heavyweight commercial Gilts. First goes to Selena Perez. Second, Charles Farmer. Third, Riley Nugent. Fourth, Grayson Long. Fifth, Coleman Seal. And sixth, Nicholas Henderson. Our Class 2 heavyweight commercial Gilts is entering the ring now. Jacob Bowers of Shenandoah. Jake Henderson of Clark. Selena Perez of Virginia Beach. Ethan Walsh of Frederick. And Michaela Lloyd of Augusta. Again, we'd like to thank our show sponsors, the Virginia Port Council, Land of Promise Farms, Creative Virtue Awards, and C&H Pipeline Solutions.
An interesting class, and I'll be honest, brings lots of quality to the forefront, and our top pair in this particular drive are Stouties for sure, and yet of the initial pair, there's one that's just more comfortable out of its shoulder, there's one that's more comfortably assembled as she comes directly out of the holding pens, and then when I stand from afar, she's longer and leveler in her hip, she paints and gives me the most streamlined look. That's a big fat back rear leg, and sets it squarely. When I step in behind, I stand over them, and she's as equally as impressive as anything in the drive. That one reads to me like a generator. That one reads to me like one that can hang around a long time, got lots of spigots down low, and still has enough horsepower to make a show bear. I do think that's a very, very nice pig to win this particular class. I love the blue gilt that's in second, and I hate to have her in second. She just ran into one that just has the extras and sets its shoulder back just a shot and comes at me just a shade more genuine. That thing's maxed out, big, stout rear tail and rear legs that are equally as big. That thing's got a big, fresh back and yet still pliable in her center. She, too, looks tough built, stout, wide, all the things that you can talk about comparative to our class winner like we talked. Her shoulder rocks forward just a shot, and then when she comes, we could tweak her just ever so slightly. But that added feature, that added bone, that added shape to her body, got a really good-looking one that comes in 3. Now, from the side, I can dig this one all day. Sharp-necked, really elevated, tall-fronted, really loose hind leg. Study her at the ground. She's the frailest of our top trio. She, too, could be pried open down low as she comes. She needs to be aired up in the midsection of her body in terms of her rib and cage. But, man, if you like them sharp-necked and smooth-built, that gilt's very, very good. Just ran into 2 Stouties in this particular drive. This one that comes in 3, I told the young man she needs to be built better because I do like her stout head. She's got a fresh back. She looks good in the center portion of her body. She just gets a little wild on her hind end. She needs to be leveler in her hip and square in her rear hock. If we can do that. Her added bone and feature and foot got the really comfy one that comes out of 5. Again, tall-fronted, level spine, loose-made, just not enough horsepower there for me. Let's give all those kids a nice round of applause.
Class 2 of heavyweight commercial gilts. First place went to Jake Henderson. Second to Selena Perez. Coming in third was Ethan Walsh. Fourth, Jacob Bowers, and rounding out the class, Michaela Lloyd. We need to select a champion heavyweight commercial breeding gilt and a reserve. Coming out now are our first place class winners, Selena Perez and Jake Henderson. Entering the ring now are Charles Farmer and a second entry from Selena Perez.
A good set of gilts here in our second division. Let's give all these kids a nice round of applause, first and seconds. And we got into that first class, and I thought, hey, there's two good heavyweight gilts. Our class leader in that scenario was extra heavy-legged. She was loose. She was really good in her body and yet could giddy up and go out here. We jumped into the second class, and, man, the heaters came. There was two stouties that had the big legs and then had some extras. When I got in close, small differences between them, but, man, there was one that was built for speed in terms of skeleton, in terms of hind leg, in terms of just balance and symmetry, and then giving you the extras when you need it. Certainly big-armed and bladed and big-backed and big-ribbed. I thought the second class had some stoutness to it. We're going to keep them together. This little guy right here is your champion. The blue's going to be reserve.
Congratulations to our champion heavyweight commercial gilt, Jake Henderson, and our reserve champion heavyweight commercial gilt, Selena Perez. We need to bring back our champion and reserve lightweight gilts and select our champion overall commercial breeding gilt. Entering the ring now, our champion lightweight commercial gilt, Isaac Cyphers. And our reserve champion lightweight, Melina Ritchie. Followed by our champion and reserve champion heavyweight commercial gilts, Jake Henderson and Selena Perez.
Good set in our lightweight division initially as they come, and we work through those. Our Division I winner was a stoutie for sure, neat looking, ran uphill, had some shape to her back. The one that was reserved, man, she's a cute little pig that's got a bendy hind leg and can giddy up and go. Certainly that division had lots of quality. We got into our heavyweight division, and again, not much poker being played here. I don't have much of a poker face. I do think the heavies were awful good. I thought that they came and offered some differences, but the one that ended up winning those heavies, man, is she stout. I always say big bones win big shows. The heavies are going to stay together. The black one's champion. The little lady's going to be reserved.
Congratulations to our champion commercial breeding gilt shown by Jake Henderson and our reserve champion commercial breeding gilt shown by Selena Perez. Looks like we're ready to start with our registered breeding gilts. 4 entries in the first class: Samuel Smith with a Duroc from Gloucester, Dakota Dunlap with another Duroc from Gloucester, Selena Perez, Virginia Beach with a Yorkshire, and London Vanderhyde of Pennsylvania with a Yorkshire.
Good initial class up here is our class winner, non-negotiable, the young lady right here to my left. Again, the best in her body, looks like a lady, sound and comfortable, got some spread up top, sets a square hind leg to the surface, good in terms of her rib. I think a very logical place for me to start. The young lady's Yorkshire Gilt's going to be second, and again, not quite as long hip, not quite as burly when I stand over it, just not as athletic in terms of her build and proportions from the side, but again, a nice kind of a gilt to be in second. The 2 red gilts, darn sure athletic because they get out here and they use the ring extremely good. Between 3 and 4, one of them just has a little more width, a little more dimension. I think value as you take her to the crate, but certainly I think both very, very good. Young man's going to be third. The young lady's going to be fourth. Let's give those kids a big round of applause as they head back.
The 2 Yorkshires in first and second place. First, an entry from Selena Perez. Second, an entry from London Vanderhyde. Third went to Samuel Smith, and rounding out the class, Dakota Dunlap. Our class 2, we have 4 entries. Isaac Cyphers from Washington with a Duroc, Clay Jackson from Bedford with a Yorkshire, Bradley Murphy of Gloucester, another Duroc, and Eden Molden of Frederick with a Duroc entry. One last time, I want to thank our show sponsors, the Virginia Port Council, Land of Promise Farms, Creative Virtue Awards, C&H Pipeline Solutions, as well as our partners for this weekend's event, the State Fair of Virginia, Virginia Farm Bureau, Virginia Cooperative Extension, Virginia Youth Animal Science Program, Virginia Department of Agriculture and Consumer Services, Farm Credit of the Virginias, First Bank and Trust, and Bank of Botetourt Ag Lending Division, as well as Mandy Rooker Photography and Show Barn Flicks.
Good second class of purebreds, and the Yorkshire's going to start this particular drive really sound, really comfortable in terms of her build. That one's really streamlined and got a good look from the side. I step in behind, maintain squareness. She looks like a productive female. She's long enough in terms of her hip for a contemporary group. Just a solid kind of a Yorkshire Gilt to start this particular drive. The young man's high performing, really big middled red Gilt's going to be second. And you compare her to the Yorkshire Gilt, she's shorter in her upper hip. She's not as clean, neat, and tidy, and just as extended and feminine about her crest and head. And then when we study her coming out of the holding pens, she wants to close in her knee, and she's just not built as genuine at the ground. We could pry her open. We could set her back in her shoulder if she's going to beat the real smooth built one that we start with. The Gilt that comes in 3 actually, to me, probably has as much intriguing breeding value as any. We compare to the other 2. She's flatter in her body. She's a little harder made type of a female, but you want to talk about a red one that's got a choke neck, that's got some bone, that's got a neat look out front, and a square hind leg. Simply put, too raw, too flat, too dry here today. But there are some pieces to her that you could take and use some utility out of to make an interesting show pick. The young man that's going to go in 4 has got one that's really big and high performing as well. Not as heavy structured. To me, of the 4, she read the flattest in her body. She rocked forward in her shoulder and wanted to close in her knee as she comes. Always well presented. Young guy does a good job showing her to me. Let's give all those kids a nice round of applause.
Class 2 results from our registered division. First place, Clay Jackson. Second place, Isaac Cyphers. Third, Eden Molden. And fourth, Bradley Murphy. Our last class of the division will have 3 entries. Coleman Seal from Augusta, Tristan Buswell of Gloucester, and Jordan Kelly of Clark. In this class, you'll see 2 Durocs and a Berkshire entry. I'd like to remind our exhibitors and families that release time today is at 2 p.m. We will not be releasing at the end of shows. You may not leave with your animals until 2 p.m.
Just 3 entries in our last class up here is the young man's Berkshire Gilt, just out and out horses the other 2 in terms of body shape, in terms of dimension all the way through. That thing's got a big, broad, wide back, and yet still great in terms of her rib shape. Comparative to the other 2, again, just brings the extras to the table and honestly sets a little square hind leg, maybe not as loose, but a square hind leg than the young man's red Gilt that's going to come in 2. This one in second, again, burly bodied and still looks enough like a lady. She's got some shape up top as well. We need to square hind leg relative to the field if we're going to go ahead and get her into pole position. The one that comes out in 3, big and extended, pretty kind of a show Gilt, for me simply too flat and dry in terms of her body. She needs to have more shape to her ribs. She needs to have more depth of body, but certainly got some bone and some look. Let's go ahead and congratulate the young guy as he heads back.
Results from Class 3. First place to Jordan Kelly. Second, Coleman Seal. And third, Tristan Buswell. We'll now select our champion and reserve champion purebred breeding gilts. Entering the ring now are our first place class winners, Selena Perez, Clay Jackson, and Jordan Kelly.
Well, let's give these kiddos a big round of applause. Purebred Division Champion Drive. Boy, this is always a little challenging for me because in this particular field, there's a little bit of everything that you can talk about, and yet at the end of the day, when I just really just stand back and think about it, we're talking about breeding females, we're talking about fundamentals and basics to build upon, and as I just stand back and think about that, I do think there's one that's just fundamentally built better in terms of skeleton, in terms of range of motion, in terms of just usefulness off of both ends of her skeleton. She's more genuine as she comes. She's just has an easier cant to her step, if you will, as we set her into motion. She's the one for me that when I get off to the side actually pulls herself together about as good as anything. She's as shapely in her rib as she just is clean and tidy at the top of her crest. That's where I'd like to change her, but she's darn sure boulder bodied. She's darn sure better in her front knee and chest. She really actually excels the field in terms of hip and hind leg. Champion Pierce right here. Congratulations.
Congratulations to our champion purebred breeding gilt, Selena Perez. We're now going to bring in the second in her class, London Vanderhyde.
Reserve a little closer, in my opinion, because one's really bold and stout, lots of muscle. One's really got a good streamlined look, gets a little flatter in her body, a little flatter in her front feet. Both of them have an issue when they come directly to me. And then I guess I go back to the totals board. Which one brings the most to the table? Sure, we could tweak her up front. We could loosen her hind end because she's got so much going on back there, but she does need to be looser constructed to be the champion. She needs to be better in her front knee, but man, she's bold body, got a big fresh back. This guy right here is going to be reserve. Good job. Good job. She just needs more power.
Congratulations to our reserve champion purebred gilt, Jordan Kelly. We're now going to bring back our champion and reserve champion from the commercial division, and select a Grand Champion and Reserve Grand Champion overall breeding gilt. Our champion commercial is entering the ring now, Jake Henderson. And our reserve champion commercial, an entry from Selena Perez. We'll bring in our champion and reserve champion purebreds, Selena Perez and Jordan Kelly. While our judge makes his final decisions, I'd like to take a second to thank all of our show crew, as well as Mandy Rooker Photography and Show Barn Flicks for being with us this weekend. Thank you to AJ Genter from joining us from Ohio, as well as our show sponsors and partners for the weekend. We certainly could not do this without you.
One last time, let's give these kiddos a big round of applause. I would ask you one time for the guys that were working around ringside and the guys that helped put this deal on, the ladies announcing, the camera crew, the photographers. Let's everybody give everybody that helped put this deal on a big round of applause. Man, for the numbers that we've worked through, there was an awful lot of hardware over there that y'all are blessed to give away to your kids, and you certainly should be thankful for that. I've had a lot of fun the last 2 years. Next year, you're going to have a new cowboy come to town and tell you his opinion on the stock and on the kids, and so just wanted to say thanks again for the opportunity. I've been blessed with a wonderful wife. If she's listening at home, honey, I love you. I'm going to catch a plane and go home and see our 4 kids, and I'm certain that after church they were headed out in the barns to get Dad's chores done. So I'm pretty lucky to have a crew at home that takes care of things while I'm gone, so very, very thankful for that. Kiddos, the only thing I'm going to leave you with, and even parents, there's so many things that this world you can do, and you've chosen to bring your kids out here and work with a 4-H and FFA project. I think it's important. Doesn't matter if it's here, if it's in a ball field, or if it's in a science room. If you want to be the best, you're going to have to work at it, because the guys that want to be the best, they work at it. They continue to work at it until they get where they want to be. And, you know, sometimes when you think you're there, you're never there. Keep working. That's the only thing I'll leave you with. Dare to dream. If there's anything that you want to do, it's possible. Let's fire these things up. I'm going to get you a champion in reserve. It's been my pleasure, and thanks again.
Big congratulations to Jake Henderson with our Grand Champion overall breeding gilt, and to Selena Perez with our Reserve Champion breeding gilt. Please make sure that you head over to the backdrop to have your picture taken, champions. Our judge will be over there for a few minutes, and we would like to have a photo. Thanks for joining us at the 2023 State Fair Virginia Swine Shows. Hope to see you next year.